Testing, testing. Hey, I know I'm a few minutes early. Last time it took me about 35 minutes to get online. So I'm just going to, my daughter Millie, shout out to Millie in New York. She said to do some vocal warm-ups before I started reading. So I still have 2 minutes officially before I'm supposed to start reading Stargirl. So I'll do some warm-ups. Here we go. Bobby Bibby bought a bat. Bobby Bibby bought a ball. With his bat, Bob banged the ball. Banged it bump against the wall. But so boldly Bobby banged it that he burst his rubber ball. Boo, cried Bobby. Bad luck, ball. Bad luck, Bobby. Bad luck, ball. Now to drown his many troubles, Bobby Bibby's blowing bubbles. Ah-ee-ah-ooh. I love New York. I need New York. I know I need unique New York. I love New York. I need New York. I know I need unique New York. Red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow. Blah, blah, blah. This is why we do warm-ups, kids. All right. It's 3:59. Hey, I'm Mrs. Bauer. It is April 21st, 2020, and day 2017 of the coronavirus lockdown. Not really, but it just feels like that long. I am here today, and I'm going to continue reading the next few chapters of the novel Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli. So for those of you that have the novel and are following along with me, we will be reading chapter 12, 13, and 14. All right. So if you want to go grab your books so you can follow along, we're going to start off on page 55. So let's do a quick recap because it's been a few days since I've seen you. Typically, when we do a recap, we want to ask the typical questions about the plot exposition, which has to go somewhere. So when we ask about plots, we want to know who are the characters? Well, the story is about Leo Borlock, and he's telling the story of this girl, Stargirl, that came to school in Arizona. That's the where in Arizona, and how Stargirl was so different than other people that she really kind of shook things up for him and all the other students at Micah High. So Stargirl, Leo, other characters are Kevin, which is Leo's friend. Hi, Kevin. Millie's sweetheart's name is Kevin, my daughter Millie. So shout out to Kevin. Shout out to Millie. I hope you're feeling better. I love you. We have Archie. He's a paleontologist, and he's kind of the mentor, the figure who teaches them lessons. So a lot of hero journey stories have the old crone or the kind of wise man person who gives them advice and helps lead them. This is Archie's role. There's also some antagonists like Hillary Kimball, who doesn't really like Stargirl. She used to be the most popular girl in Micah High. And the last time we read, we left off with Stargirl being left at a game, an away game. It was a basketball game. Because remember, Stargirl she does things differently. She marches to the beat of her own drum. So she was cheering for the other team, the other basketball team. No, actually, that wasn't it. The team, suddenly the team at school has started becoming winners. They'd never won a game and never won a season. And it's kind of changing how they are as a community, as a group, kind of that mob mentality. And all of them were upset. Stargirl was upset because the other team was losing. So she went outside and the team bus left her there. So things are kind of starting to turn around for Stargirl. People are starting to turn against her. And I've seen that happen to people who good things happen to. Everybody loves them. There's always those one or two people who get jealous. They don't like them. They think, so they try and tear them down because that's what humans do, unfortunately. I've seen it happen at school. I've seen you guys, I've seen it happen in middle school and elementary school, where someone who gets too much attention or too much praise, then other students try and tear them down and take them down a notch, which is unfortunate because we really should root each other on, especially now. Now is the time where we all need to find a little more Stargirl in us. Gosh, I know I've spoken way too much. So without further ado, Chapter 12, Stargirl. This is how Hot Seat went. Remember, Hot Seat is the show that they do for the students at the high school. And they just got Stargirl to be a guest. This is how Hot Seat went. It took place in the Communications Center studio. There were 2 chairs on stage. The infamous Hot Seat itself, painted red with flames running up the legs, and an ordinary chair for the host, Kevin. Off to the side were 2 rows of 6 chairs each. The second row higher than the first. This is where the jury sat. It was a jury in name only. The 12 members did not vote or render a verdict. Their job was to ask questions, to give the hot seat its heat. Ticklish questions, embarrassing questions, nosy questions, but not mean or hurtful questions. The idea was to make the subject squirm, not roast. In the spirit of mock inquisition, we called the subject the victim. And why would anyone want to be the victim? Well, the lure of TV, the chance to confess or lie before a camera and peers instead of parents. But I doubted the usual reasons applied to Stargirl. There were 3 cameras, one for the stage, one for the jury, and Chico. Chico was the handheld close-up camera. According to Mr. Robino, our faculty advisor, a student named Chico once begged him to be a close-up camera kid. Mr. Robino gave him a tryout, but Chico was so skinny, he practically collapsed under the camera. The job went to someone else, and Chico went to the weight room. By the following year, Chico had muscles, and the camera was like nothing on his shoulder. He got the job, and he was brilliant at it. He gave the camera his own name. "We are one," he said. When he graduated, his name stayed behind. And from then on, the close-up camera and its operator were a unit called Chico. The host and the victim were each fitted with a thimble-sized clip-on mic. The jury passed around a hand mic. Opposite the stage was the glassed-in control room, sound insulated from the rest of the studio. That's where I worked. Wearing my headset, watching the monitors, directing the shots, I stood at the shoulder of the technical director, or TD. He sat at a rack of buttons, punching up the shots I ordered. Also in the control room were the graphics and audio people. Mr. Robino was there as faculty overseer, but basically the students worked everything. Kevin's job was to get things started, intro the victim, ask a few opening questions, stir things up if the jury was slow. Usually, the jury was on the ball. Typical questions. Does it bother you that you're so short? Or, is it true that you look like so-and-so? Do you wish you were good looking? How often do you take a shower? It almost always added up to entertainment. At the end of the half hour, as we cued credits and music, there was always a good feeling in the air. And everyone, victim, jury member, studio crew, mingled and became students again. We filmed the show after school, then broadcast them that night. Prime time on local cable. About 10,000 homes. Our own survey said at least 50% of the student body watched any given show. We outdrew most of the hot sitcoms. We expected to top 90% for the Stargirl show. But I had a secret. I wished no one would watch. In the months since we had scheduled the show, Stargirl's popularity had dropped out of sight. Gone were ukuleles from the lunchroom. More and more kids saw her cheerleading behavior as undermining the basketball team and its perfect record. I was afraid the boos for her might spread from the court to the studio. I was afraid the show might turn ugly. When Stargirl came in that day after school, Kevin gave her the usual briefing while Mr. Robinow and I checked out the equipment. As the jury members straggled in, they were not clowning around or tap dancing on the stage as jurors usually did. They went right to their seats. Stargirl was the one tap dancing and mugging for the cameras with Cinnamon the rat licking her nose. Kevin was cracking up. But the faces of the jurors were grim. One of them was Hillary Kimball. My bad feeling got worse. I retreated to the control room and shut the door. I checked communications with the cameras. We were ready. Kevin and Stargirl took their seats. I took one last look through the plate glass that separated the set from the control room. For the next half hour, I would see the world through 4 monitors. Okay, everybody, I announced. Here we go. I cut the studio mic. I looked over my control room mates. We all set? Everyone nodded. Just then, Stargirl lifted one of Cinnamon's front paws and waved it to the control room and in a squeaky voice said, "Hi, Leo." I froze. I came unraveled. I didn't know she knew my name. I just stood there like a dummy. Finally, I waggled my fingers at the rat and mouthed the words, "Hi, Cinnamon," although they couldn't hear me on the other side of the glass. I took a deep breath. Okay, ready? Music? Ready intro? I paused. Music. Intro. This was the moment I lived for, launching the show. I was the director, the maestro. I called the shots. On the monitors before me, I watched the program unfold according to my commands. But on this day, the thrill was missing. I felt only a dark dread snaking along the cables. Greetings and welcome to Hot Seat. Kevin went through the opening spiel. Kevin loved to be on camera. He was ideal for a show like this, which made good use of his smirky grin and arching, "Did I really hear you say that?" eyebrows. He turned to Stargirl. Then, impromptu, he reached out to stroke the nose of Cinnamon, who was perched on Stargirl's shoulder. "Want to hold him?" she said. Kevin gave the camera a "should I look?" "Well, sure," he said. "Ready? Chico, rat," I said into my headset mic. Ready was always first in the command sequence. Chico zoomed in. TD punched up Chico. The camera followed Cinnamon from Stargirl's hands to Kevin's. No sooner was the rat in Kevin's lap than it scampered up its chest and darted between 2 buttons in his shirt. Kevin yipped and squirmed. "It scratches!" "He has fingernails," said Stargirl calmly. "He won't hurt you." Chico nailed Cinnamon, poking his head out from between the 2 buttons. Mr. Robinow stuck a thumbs up in front of my face. Kevin gave the camera his, "Hey, ain't I something" face. He turned again to Stargirl. "You know, ever since you showed up at school this year, we've been wanting to put you on the hot seat." Stargirl stared at him. She turned to the live camera. Her eyes were growing whiter. Something was happening. And whiter. "Chico!" I barked. Chico moved in, crouching, giving it a little upshot. "Terrific. Closer. Closer," I said. Stargirl's wonder-struck eyes practically filled the screen. I checked the long-shot monitor. She was frozen, rigid, as if electrified to the chair. Somebody smacked my shoulder, and I turned. Mr. Robineau was laughing, saying something. I lifted one earphone. She's joking, he repeated, and suddenly I saw. She was taking hot seat, literally. She was milking it for all it was worth. And judging from the blank stares of Kevin and the jury, Mr. Robineau and I were the only ones who got the joke. Stargirl's hands were rising from one of the arms of the hot seat. Ready, one, I called. One. Camera one, not there at first, but getting it now. The long shot, nailing her as her arms came off the chair arms, fingers spread wide, and you could almost see her fingertips smoking. Hold it, I prayed, hold it. Her horrified eyes swung down over the side of the chair. The hot seat saw the painted flames. Yikes! Her scream bent instrument dials like palms in a hurricane. The rat leaped from Kevin's shirt. The TV image quaked as my camera one man flinched, but he recovered and caught her standing now on the front edge of the stage, bending over with her rear end in the camera, flapping her hand behind her, fanning her smoking fanny. Kevin finally got it. He went nuts. One, pull back, get Kevin in it. Ready, one. Kevin was doubled up and tipping out of his chair on his knees on the stage. His laughter flooded the control room. The rat ran over his hands and hopped down the single stage step. The rat, I yelled. Two, hey, get the rat. But Two couldn't get the rat because the rat was nosing around Two's feet, and Two was bolting from his camera. Chico, rat! Chico dived. He was flat on the floor, feeding the live screen, a brilliant shot of the rat heading over to the jury. The jury members scrambling, taking off, climbing onto their seats. Forget the readies. Things were happening too fast. The cameras were dancing, feeding the monitors. I barked commands. TD was punching his button rack like some hard rock keyboarder. Stargirl's pantomime remains the best I have ever seen. Mr. Robineau kept squeezing my shoulder. As he said later, it was the greatest moment in hot seat history. But because of what followed, no audience would ever see it. Dun dun dun! Chapter 13. In less than a minute, everything returned to normal. Stargirl retrieved Cinnamon and sat back coolly in the hot seat as if nothing had happened. Kevin's eyes twinkled. He was squirming. He couldn't wait to dig into the interview. Neither could the jury, but their eyes were not twinkling. Kevin forced himself to look serious. So, your name, Stargirl, it's pretty unusual. A Stargirl gave him a blank look. Kevin was flustered. Isn't it? He said. Stargirl shrugged. Not to me. She's putting him on, I thought. Chico, I said into my mic. Stay tight on her face. A voice was heard dimly off camera. Kevin turned. A jury member had spoken. Jury, mic up, I said. Ready, two? The mic was passed to Jennifer St. John. Two. The mic looked like a blank ice cream cone before Jennifer's face. Her voice wasn't pleasant. What was wrong with the name your parents gave you? Stargirl turned slowly to Jennifer. She smiled. Nothing. It was a good name. What was it? Susan. So why did you drop it? Because I didn't feel like a Susan anymore. So you just threw out Susan and named yourself Stargirl? No, still smiling. No. Pocket Mouse. 12 pairs of eyes boggled. What? I named myself Pocket Mouse, Stargirl said breezily. Then Mud Pie, then Hully Gully, then Stargirl. Damon Ricci snatched the mic from Jennifer St. John. So what's it going to be next, dog turd? Uh-oh, I thought. Here we go. Kevin jumped in. So you change your name whenever you get tired of it? Just whenever it doesn't fit anymore. I'm not my name. My name is something I wear like a shirt. It gets worn. I outgrow it. I change it. So why Stargirl? Oh, I don't know. She petted Cinnamon's nose with her fingertip. I was walking in the desert one night, looking up at the sky like... She chuckled. How could you not look at the sky? And it just sort of came to me. It fell onto me. Kevin looked up from his sheet of prepared questions. So what do your parents think? Are they sad you didn't keep Susan? No, it was almost their idea. When I started calling myself Pocket Mouse when I was little, they called me that too. And we just never went back. Another distant voice from the jury. I tapped the sound man. Jury mic, and keep all mics open. I hated to do it. It was Mike Ebersole. I said, do you love your country? Oh, yes, she answered briskly. Do you love yours? Ebersole ignored the question. Why don't you say the Pledge of Allegiance right? She smiled. Sounds right to me. Sounds like you're a traitor to me. Jurors were only supposed to ask questions, not make statements. A hand reached into the picture and grabbed the mic from Ebersole. Becca Rinaldi's angry face appeared on camera too. Why do you cheer for the other team? Stargirl seemed to be thinking it over. I guess because I'm a cheerleader. You're not just a cheerleader, you dumb cluck. Becca Rinaldi was snarling into the mic. You're supposed to be our cheerleader, a Micah cheerleader. I glanced at Mr. Robineau. He was turned away from the monitors. He was staring straight at the set through the control room window. Stargirl was leaning forward, looking earnestly at Becca Rinaldi, her voice as small as a little girl's. When the other team scores a point and you see how happy it makes all their fans, doesn't it make you happy too? Becca growled. No. Doesn't it make you want to join in? No. Don't you ever want the other team to be happy too? No. Stargirl seemed genuinely surprised. You don't always want to be the winner, do you? Becca scowled at her, jutted out her jaw. Yes, I do. Yes, I always want to be the winner. That's what I do. I root for us to win. That's what we all do. She swept her arms around the set. We root for Micah. She jabbed her finger at the stage. Who do you root for? Stargirl hesitated. She smiled. She threw out her arms. I root for everybody. Kevin, to the rescue, thankfully, clapped his hands. Hey, how about this? Maybe it should be official. Maybe one person in the whole district should be appointed to be on everybody's side. Stargirl reached over and slapped Kevin's knee. She could wear every school's letter on her sweater. Kevin laughed. She'd have to be as big as a house. Stargirl slapped her own knee. Then no letter at all. That's even better. She looked into the camera. She swiped the space out before her. Out with letters. Cheerleaders at large. Everybody's cheerleader. Kevin sat at his attention, placed his hand over his heart, with liberty and justice and a cheerleader for all. Ebersole snarled into the jury mic. And a nut roll for all. Kevin wagged his finger. Oh, that's a no-no, he scolded. No statements from the jury. Questions only. Renee Bozeman snatched the mic. Okay, here's a question. Why did you quit homeschooling? Stargirl's face became serious. I wanted to make friends. Well, you sure have a funny way of showing it, making the whole school mad at you. I wished I had never given in to hot-seating Stargirl. Stargirl just stared. Chico filled the screen with her face. Give me. It was Jennifer St. John reaching for the mic. And out of school, too. You meddle in everyone's business. You stick your nose in whether you're invited or not. Why do you do that? Stargirl had no reply. Her usual impish expression was gone. She looked at Jennifer. She looked at the camera as if trying to find an answer in the lens. Then she was looking away, looking at the control room. I took my eyes from the monitor, and for a second, I thought they met hers at the control room window. I'd been wondering when Hillary Kimball would speak. Now she did. I'm going to tell you something, girl. You're goofy. You're crazy. Hillary was standing, jabbing her finger at Stargirl, chewing on the mic. You must have come from Mars or something. Kevin raised a timid hand. And don't tell me no statements, Kevin. Where'd you come from? Mars or something? Now, there's a question. Why don't you go back to where you came from? And there's another question. Stargirl's eyes filled the camera. Oh, don't cry, I prayed. There was no stopping Hillary. You want to cheer for other schools? Fine. Go there. Don't come to my school. Get out of my school. Other hands were snatching at the mic. I know what your problem is. All this weird stuff you do, it's just to get attention. It's just to get a boyfriend. Oh, the jurors laughed. They were a mob. Hands grabbed at the mic. Kevin looked anxiously at me. I could do nothing. With all the button and switches at my command, I was helpless to change anything on the other side of the glass. I got a simple question for you. What's the matter with you, huh? Huh? Why can't you be normal? Why do you want to be so different? Yeah, something wrong with us? You got to be so different? Why don't you wear any makeup? They were all standing now, jabbing, jutting, shouting, whether they had the mic or not. You don't like us, do you? Do you? Mr. Robino flipped the master toggle on the console. That's it, he said. I flipped the studio sound switch. That's it, show's over. The jury, however, went on shouting. Chapter 14. That was the start of a period that blurs as I try to recall it. Incidents seem to cascade and merge. Events become feelings, feelings become events. Head and heart are contrary historians. The hot seat session was never aired. Mr. Robino destroyed the tape. Of course, that didn't stop every moment of it from being reported. In fact, most of the students knew about it by the time school opened the next day. What I recall then, when the last detail had been spilled, is a period of whispers and waiting. Tension. What would happen now? Would the jury's open hostilities spill over into the classrooms? How would Stargirl react? Answers were expected on the following day, Valentine's Day. On previous holidays, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Groundhog's Day, Talk Like a Pirate Day, Stargirl had left a little something on each desk in her homeroom. Would she do likewise this time? The answer was yes. Each member of Homeroom 17 found a candy heart on his or her desk that morning. There was a basketball game that night. That I do remember. The biggest game of the year. The Electrons had breezed through the regular season undefeated, but now the second season was about to begin. The playoffs. First the districts, then the regionals, and finally the state tournament. We'd never even made it to the districts, but now visions of championships danced in our heads. The Electrons, champions of all Arizona, we would settle for nothing less. First hurdle in our way was Sun Valley, champions of the Pima League. The game was played Valentine's night on a neutral court in Casa Grande. All of Micah, it seemed, emptied out and headed for the game. Kevin and I went in the pickup. From the moment the Micah mob entered the gym, our cheers rattled the rafters. The big green M on Stargirl's white sweater flounced as she spun and leaped with the other cheerleaders. I spent as much time watching her as I did watching the game. She cheered when we scored. When Sun Valley scored, she did not. Something inside me felt better, but not for long. Oh, we were losing. For the first time all year, we were trailing at the end of the first quarter. In fact, we were getting smoked, 21-9. The reason was no mystery. While Sun Valley's team was not as good as ours, they did have one thing we did not. A superstar. A kid named Ron Kovac. And he stood 6'8" and averaged 30 points a game. Our players looked like 5 Davids flailing against Goliath. Sun Valley's lead had increased to 19 points midway through the second quarter. Our once raucous fans were stunned into silence, and that's when it happened. The ball was loose in the middle of the floor. Several players from each team dived for it, and at that moment, Kovac was running past, trying to avoid the divers, and his right foot came down on a prone player's sneaker. So it was told in the newspapers the next day. At the time, it happened so fast no one saw it, though several people said they heard a sickening crack, like a twig snapping. All we knew that suddenly Goliath was on the floor, writhing and screaming, and his right foot looked all wrong. And the Sun Valley coaches and trainer and players were sprinting across the floor, but they were not the first. Stargirl somehow was already there. While Kovac's own cheerleaders sat gaping and stricken on their bench, Stargirl knelt on the hardwood floor. She held his head in her lap while the others attended his broken leg. Her hands moved over his face and forehead. She seemed to be saying things to him. When they carried him away on a stretcher, she followed. Everyone, both sides, stood and applauded. The Sun Valley cheerleaders leaped as if he had just scored 2 points. Ambulance lights flashed in the high windows. I knew why I was applauding, but I wondered about some of the other Micah fans. Were they really standing in tribute, or because they were happy to see him go? The game resumed. Stargirl returned to the cheerleaders' bench. Without Kovac, Sun Valley was a pushover. By early in the second half, we took the lead and went on to win easily. 2 nights later, we lost to Glendale. Again, we fell farther and farther behind as the first half went on. But this time, there was no turnaround in the second half. This time, the Electrons faced not 1, but 5 players better than themselves. This time, no opponent broke an ankle, though I'm sure in our desperation, some of us secretly wished for it. We were shocked. We couldn't believe it. And then as the seconds of the fourth quarter ticked by, we did believe. The cheers from across the gym were like volleys of arrows piercing our grand delusion. How could we have been so stupid? Did we really think that little Micah, undefeated in its own third-rate league, could ever stand up to big city powerhouses around the state? We had been lured into great, foolish expectations, suckered. We were devastated. It had been so wonderful to be the winners, and so right for us. Winning. We had come to believe was our destiny, and now... As the Glendale coach sent in the scrubs to mop us up, Micah girls wept. Boys cursed and booed. Some blamed the officials, or the nets, or the lights. The cheerleaders, to their credit, kept on cheering. They looked up at us with glistening eyes and mascara tracks on their cheeks. They pumped their arms and shouted and did everything that cheerleaders are supposed to do. But their gestures were empty, their hearts not in it. Except for Stargirl. As I watched her intently, I could see that she was different. Her cheeks were dry. There was no crack in her voice, no sag in her shoulders. From the start of the second half on, she never sat down, and she never again looked at the game. She turned her back on the court. She stood and faced us and gave not an ounce of herself to the jubilation across the gym. We were losing by 30 points with a minute to go, but she cheered on as if we had a chance. Her eyes blazed with the ferocity I had never seen before. She shook her fist at us. She flung her defiance at our gloom. And then her face was bloody. A Glendale player had just dunked the ball, and Kevin pounded my knee with his fist, and I looked to see Stargirl's face, suddenly a bloody mask, and I was on my feet screaming, "No!" But it wasn't blood. It was a tomato. Someone had splattered her face with a perfectly thrown ripe tomato. And as the clock expired and the Glendale fans poured onto the court, Stargirl just stood there, her great eyes staring up at us in utter bewilderment through the pulpy red gore. Sprouts of bitter laughter erupted among us, even some applause. The next morning at home, I found the card. It was in a school notebook that apparently I had not opened for several days. It was a Valentine, one of those little cutout third grade sorts showing a blushing little boy and a girl with Mary Jane shoes and a big red heart between them and the words, I love you. And as third graders and high schoolers often do, the sender had signed it in code. And it's a picture of a star and a girl. That's how she signed it. Stargirl. And that is the end of chapter 14. So lots happening. Before I sign off, because this one has run long, I want to thank you for coming. I want to thank you for being here and reading with me every Tuesday and Thursday. I'll be back again to read chapters 15, 16, and 17. Think about the characters, think about the plots, think about the theme, but mostly just listen and put yourself in her shoes. Think about having some empathy for Stargirl and what it's like for students who are different, and how it must feel. All right, so that's it for me. Oh, one thing before I log off. This week, the Leonid showers, there's a meteor shower tonight. So go outside and stare up all week. Tonight is its peak, but you should be able to see stars falling from the sky and meteors. And I thought it was appropriate since we're reading Stargirl, the Lysids, I think, the Lysid. Anyway, look it up online. There's a meteor shower. Go outside and look at the stars. And until then, I'll see you on Thursday. Stay positive, stay healthy, stay safe, stay sane, and don't forget to wash your hands. Bye.